Purdue gets the win over UCLA, and all is good in Mackey Arena. We'll break down everything that you need to know from the game coming up right now on Boilers in the Stands.
It's Zach Eady with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I am your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Kraig Bowers. Purdue gets the 76-66 win over UCLA, holds UCLA without making a field goal over the last 2.5 minutes, finds a way to dig in deep, gets a big-time win. Braden Smith and TKR led the way with their scoring, but there's a lot of contributions elsewhere as well. Kraig, I'll throw it to you just for your quick initial thoughts on the game.
It was a really important win, right? It was one that felt like Purdue had to have. Coming off of a 4-game losing streak, you're playing at home. You know Braden Smith's breaking the record tonight, right? And you want the win on the night that he does that so you can really celebrate it like it should be celebrated. And to me, Joe, honestly, what I saw tonight was a different level of leadership, a different level of accountability. We heard people talk about that a lot over this past week, and I really just feel like you could feel it, right? It was the energy of the team felt different. The way they were coming together after plays, the way they were communicating and talking with each other, it just had a different feel to it. And we saw a couple of freshmen attack more in the first half right out of the gate. It felt to me like something changed over this last week. Now, part of that, too, maybe they finally got a little bit of rest, which certainly helps. But whatever happened on Wednesday at that team meeting, I'm not saying it's going to fix everything, right? But I guess my first point on the game tonight, more so than any individual schemes or plays or anything like that, was just a different sense around the team tonight in general.
And that's where my initial thoughts are, too, right? There's still things to fix. But winning just fixes a lot in general. I'm not going to repeat what you said about the leadership and all that because I completely agree. And I'll go to we're a fan podcast, right? Like at our core. I want to give a shout out to the fans because, right, 4-game losing streak, and it's fans and the team itself, right? The team came out and played hard and right away, like set the tone right away. And on a 4-game losing streak, like it could be easy to just kind of let it slip. It could be easy for fans to not be as engaged, and this might have been the most engaged crowd I've seen all season at Mackey Arena. I don't know if it might have been the loudest, or it's if not the loudest, one of the loudest. So I just want to shout out that as well, where like, regardless of, yes, 4-game losing streak, things have not been going well for Purdue. Everybody in Mackey Arena showed up today, and it just multiple times throughout, it was like, man, this is pretty impressive stuff. Like this, it is crazy loud in here, and you can't say enough about that. This is a fan base that's not giving up on this team, and obviously today this team is not giving up on themselves either. And right, things to fix, things to improve still come March, but they needed this one badly. They just needed to get a win. Now you can breathe a little bit. You face Rutgers, not going to be an easy game by any means, but you have Rutgers at home and at Illinois. Both winnable games. Both games you still have to play very well. You win both of those, things are fine, and you can kind of look ahead to March. And that's kind of where I'm at following this game. It's just energy was there from everybody inside Mackey Arena, and it was just really good to see. Muted.
We sat too close together tonight. We didn't think this through, and we're picking up each other a little bit in feedback. So, yeah, I got caught with the mute button. But I guess last thing that I'm going to say just in general around the leadership standpoint, in the press conference after the game, Trey and Braden both talked about this, and they both took ownership and basically said, we weren't doing a good enough job from that standpoint. And luckily they recognized that. They got together, they talked about it. Braden said he's got to do a better job of, getting together with the guys after a play, whether it's a good play or a negative play, and being positive and trying to support everybody else on the team and bring out the best in everybody. And I don't know that that's always been there, right? But growth, and Painter talked about this a little bit too, the first step in that growth, if you're going to be that leader as a player, if you're going to call a team meeting, the first step in that is having the ability to recognize it yourself, right? That things have to change with you, and then you can get everybody else to change around you, that kind of growth mindset. And I think we saw that, and I'm hoping it continues in that direction moving forward.
Yep, and that's, at this point, that's all you can do. You can only play one game at a time, right? They can't get back on a 3-game winning streak in one game. You got to win the game in front of you, and then you got to stack that and just keep doing that. And they executed phase 1 of that, I guess, is where I'm at. So do that, take care of business, what's in front of you. In a game, too, that, like, they win by 10, it wasn't like Purdue controlled this game. The second half was very much back and forth. I don't know the exact final run, but Purdue, it was tied with, or a 1-possession game with like 6 minutes left, if I'm remembering correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like something like that. And then Purdue was able to turn it up. Obviously, that's led by Braden Smith and TKR. And as we can transition into some of the players, I think we got to probably start with those two, because I think they were pretty good today. I'll get the stats up in a second. We can put them up. But TKR 29 points on 11 of 15 shooting. Braden Smith 23 points on 8 of 17 shooting, 6 of 10 from 3, 8 assists, 3 turnovers, 4 steals, 3 rebounds. They basically both played 40 minutes this game. What else can you say about, other than they stepped up when Purdue absolutely needed them to, and that started that second half. TKR just kind of took over for a bit.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize, like, I guess what the point total was at. I'm not always like looking at the stats or looking up at the board to see. And I turned to you at one point and I said, he's got 23 already. Like, I just didn't realize how fast they were racking up there. But Trey played like a dude tonight. And there were several times where he took a lot of contact, and he kind of almost like pushes that ball, like kind of rocks his arm back and then like aims at the backboard and kind of lets it go with a nice touch right at the last minute. But it can look a little bit awkward when he's playing through contact. But, I mean, he just went right through guys at times tonight, took that initial contact, still figured out a way to put the ball in the bucket. And Purdue needed every bit of those 29 points. And, if we talked a lot in this losing stretch that, especially Braden, just because of what he's done in the past, but now Trey too, with who he's become on this year's team, that you get held to a higher standard when you're the stars, right? Zach got held to that higher standard the last 2 years, and both of these guys responded tonight after coming off of that 4-game losing streak. Like you said with Braden, 23 points, right? Gets the record, 8 assists. He got the record on the 3rd assist of the night. Obviously, his shot was there from deep, going 6 of 10. I thought the second one that he hits, right, where we go 4 in a row. Heidi hits 1, Lawyer hits 1, Smith hits 2. All of those were really big. But I'm pretty sure that last one came on a punch out from Cam that CJ kind of helped keep alive underneath the basket. Either his first or his second one. And I really thought that was just the dagger. And I mean, he's him, Braden Smith is him. He had a rough couple of games, but he reminded everybody why he is the best player in the Big Ten tonight.
Yeah, 100%. 23 and 8. It's not an easy thing to do. I can look at the stats tomorrow probably, and they'll refresh. With 8 assists today, like, he is still on pace to average the most assists per game in Big Ten history. Right now, that record goes to Magic Johnson at, I believe, 8.2 a game, and Braden Smith's averaging like 8.5 or 8.6. Like, what he is doing with the ball, passing the ball, has just simply never been seen before, at least at the Big Ten level. And it cannot be taken for granted. And sometimes it's hard not to take it for granted, just because that's how good he is. Like you said, broke the all-time assist record today for Purdue. With his third one, it was a little curl for Colvin. Big time plays from both of them, right? Like, it just they did what Purdue needed, and they were awesome. And they need that from them basically every game going forward. Getting to, I guess, is there more you want to talk about with them? Because we're at the point in the season where it's like, hey, Braden and TKR are awesome and two of the best players in the country. Cool. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think I already talked at the top of the show about what else that I think really needed to be discussed with them. And, being a leader of the team is not just what you do on the court. And I think we saw that, right? So I think we've already addressed the really important things tonight. But, again, I'll just say that can't be taken for granted, that the things they did off the court in this last week, how important those are as being part of a leader of the team as well.
And that seemed in some capacity to translate to other guys. And, right, Fletcher has 11. I'll put up the full stats here. Fletch has 11, 3 of 5 from 3. CJ Cox has 5 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Colvin, he knocks down a 3, has 5 points, and I thought some solid defense. Heidi, 3 points and 9 rebounds, all 9 coming in the second half. And we heard him in presser. Somebody asked him about, kind of the rebounding and, the difference between the first and second half. And Heidi just straight up said, he's like, I thought I was soft in the first half. And he thought there was rebounds he could get, and he was just simply being soft. And that was not the case in the second half. I mean, how many times did he just soar in for rebounds and basically even rip him from like TKR or whoever else on the, like, Heidi was going to get the ball. And I think that gets to a point, right, where I understand a big talking point around Purdue is, make the other guys beat you, the other guys can't score and stuff. And yes, guys got to knock down an open 3, and Colvin and Heidi did it. Like, not ignoring that, yes, they do need to knock those down. But to me, the points are one of the least things I care about from them. Like, yes, knock down a couple threes, cool. But the whole, you gotta, others have to score the ball. Braden and TKR are so good, and Lawyer's an awesome third option. Like, I care more about what they do defensively and how they rebound the ball. And, is the ball are they having turnovers, or are they forcing turnovers on the other end? Like, those are the things that matter way more to me for guys like CJ and Colvin and Heidi. And I think all of 3 of those really contributed in different ways today. And maybe the raw point total is something that people can point to still and be like, oh no, nobody outside the big 3 scored, but they did a lot of other stuff really, really well today. And I think that oftentimes will get ignored. And that also hasn't been there every game. Like, that hasn't been there as well. It's not like, Heidi, obviously 9 rebounds maybe we shouldn't expect that many, but right, there's games where he doesn't rebound well, or where CJ isn't aggressive offensively, or where Colvin just kind of looks, I don't want to say out of it, but right, like, just not playing to his best. And we saw, I think, a lot closer to what they need to do at their ceiling level for Purdue today. And I don't know if there's somebody specific you want to hit on first, but just shout out really that, shout out the quote unquote other guys contributing in massive ways that wasn't just putting the ball in the hoop, because there's a lot more than just putting the ball in the hoop.
Right. And obviously that's everything you just said. Yes. Because if you're just going to pull up the stat sheet at the end of the day and you're looking through the points total, it's not going to tell the whole story of tonight. With that said, they do go 6 of 12 from the field. We know with Smith, Lawyer, and TKR on the court that the shots are going to funnel through those 3 guys mostly. And you want these other guys to take advantage and score when they can. CJ did come out. I thought he was way more aggressive this first half than what we've seen him over the course of time. But obviously, the big story tonight's Cam, right? I don't know that I've ever seen a stat line of somebody who got, decent minutes in the first half have 0 rebounds and then almost finish with double-digit rebounds. I don't know that I've ever seen that. And he had a couple of chances right at the end of the game where I thought he was going to get his 10th, which I thought would have been incredible. But, I mean, Purdue is, I think, minus 14 in the first half in rebounds, if I remember right. I think they finished the second half plus 5. They didn't allow an offensive rebound until just a couple minutes left in this second half, throughout that second half after giving up 10 in the first half, which allows Purdue to flip the script in terms of second chance points, where they actually end up leading UCLA in second chance points tonight. So, I mean, I think you have to start there. And Painter said in the post-game press conference, talking about personnel a little bit, is as somebody coming off the bench, the best compliment that you can pay them is if they force your hand to not sit you. And basically said Cam did that tonight with the way that he was rebounding the ball. It wasn't necessarily anything First was doing wrong. Cam was just a massive, massive force on the boards from that standpoint. I mean, go ahead.
I was going to, well, there's a star comment. I think it funnels in, and then I'll throw it back to you and jump to, that's not the one. From SLK Boiler, why was First the right answer before and now he isn't so much? Is it just who is on? And taking it for this game specifically, you mentioned Kraig, right? Heidi it's like he's played well, and that's to start that second half, and you kind of just ride the hot hand, and some of it is just going to be who plays better. Some of it's defense, like things like that, matchups. And I do think also, like, more so than maybe I've seen, and Cronin in general for UCLA, the head coach, he's a guy that does, he is not afraid to go deep in his bench and substitute at will. And you saw, I think, a little bit of cat and mouse of, like, if Lawyer went to the bench, that means Kobe Johnson would get a quick breather because UCLA really wanted Kobe Johnson on Lawyer. And then if you saw Heidi check into the game, then UCLA would also go small. And so then when UCLA is small, where basically Lazar Stefanovic and Kobe Johnson, who are each like 6'6", those are their 3 and 4. It's hard to then put First back into the game and now being like, hey, like, go guard a legit like wing on the perimeter. And obviously First can do that. But it gets hard when, right, that matchup happens. Who's going to kind of blink first? And I think Cronin wanted to stay smaller with one traditional big and, 4 guard wings that he does at times. And I think it's hard for Painter at that point too, to be like, all right, let's throw a true, like, another forward out there to try to match up, because it just doesn't quite make as much sense when you have Heidi. And then on top of that, Heidi's just playing awesome. So I know that's a little circling around the question, but I think in general, right, is a little bit matchup dependent, a little bit who is just playing better. Need both First and Heidi to be good if Purdue wants to make a deep run in March. So
yeah,
that's my thoughts on that question. If you had anything go, or I know I kind of cut you off, so whatever you were going to.
No, I don't have anything else on that question. I just think we do need to talk about Fletch quick, probably next, because this is a tough matchup for him, because UCLA is one of the better defensive teams in the Big Ten, if not the country. We know they have one of the high, or in terms of adjusted turnover percentage, are still number 1 in the country from that metric in terms of what they do defensively. But they're big and they're physical. And you saw, like, Fletch couldn't leverage and get downhill at all tonight. He tried it a couple of times and it just was not going to work. And it also looked like they were adamant that they were not going to give him any open looks. A couple of the times he did kind of came out of system in terms of what UCLA was trying to do defensively, where he did get a quick open look or not. But when he got those open looks, he made him pay, right? And one of the things that we've said, if you're not Braden, if you're not TKR, when you get an open look, you have to take advantage of it. Now, I thought there was a couple of others he could have pulled the trigger on too still at certain points during this game. Not the one at the end of the game where Matt Painter is jumping up and down and saying, no, 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 when he was about 23 or 24 feet. But, he gets 5 looks. One of them he gets blocked from behind, right? In terms of that, and he knocks 3 other ones down from 3 tonight. So 60% from 3. If you're not going to get many when you get your opportunities, you have to take advantage of them, and he did. You could tell Fletch got wore out, like late in the second half, less than 10 minutes in the second half. He was really like kind of putting his hands on his knees, when he could take a quick second, because this is a physical perimeter defense, and they were really making it tough for him.
They were, and this was yet another game where the thought of, like, well, I don't hate CJ and Colvin closing this game over Lawyer, and then Lawyer has 11 points on really efficient shooting and 2 assists, and I also don't think terrible defense. Like, yes, UCLA went at him a little bit, but I don't think it was enough to play him off the floor. And there is something, I think, to just the leadership aspect. He has been through everything that you can kind of imagine in terms of college basketball, and sometimes that matters just as much. And also, like, Lawyer at times can be a guy where you just want him out there because defenses have to focus on him, right? If it is Colvin and CJ, not that they're going to ignore them, but Kobe Johnson, and if you guys watch the preview, I spoke very, very highly of Kobe Johnson. UCLA loves using him off ball. They love using him as chasing around pin downs. They love using him as their quote unquote like rim protector of sorts because they don't really have a true one besides Mara. But he has such quick hands and such good defensive instincts. They love letting him just be able to kind of roam, similar to what Purdue does with Braden, right? Braden's best spot is being able to roam a bit. With a guy like Lawyer, you have to respect him. And so now, even just by him simply being on the floor, that means Kobe Johnson, their best defender, who I think will have a legit case for Defensive Player of the Year, he has to watch Lawyer. He has to guard Lawyer. And now that takes him away from doing other things. Yes, that's a tougher one-on-one matchup for Lawyer himself, but I don't know. It goes back and forth for me a bit in my head, where even within this game, where it's like, hey, he hasn't been playing the best, I don't think. Obviously, he still ended up with good stats, but at the same time, the little things like that, I think it can be hard to account for them in a stat sheet or anything like that. But I do think it affects the game, where I would rather have Braden Smith and TKR work with space and not have Kobe Johnson trying to disrupt them, and Lawyer simply being on the floor helps that. So, yeah, I had another thought and then I lost it because I'm just rambling at this point. When I fill in for Braggs as host, I just feel obligated to really I gotta, there's the void space of Braggs, and I have to fill it with words that coming from my mouth. So good job from Lawyer in a game again. Just like you said, ultra efficient, did his thing. Positive contributor to this team. Anything else in Lawyer? Who do you want to go to next?
Real quick, let me get the ad read in. So do want to thank our sponsors of this show. Thank you to BJ Rule, Purdue graduate and current Lafayette resident. BJ Rule has close to 15 years experience helping buyers, sellers, and real estate investors in Lafayette and surrounding areas. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, give BJ a call or text to set up an appointment to see how he can help you accomplish your goals. Your home will likely be the most expensive purchase of your life. Have the experts with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams on your side and let BJ help you navigate this process. Call 317-345-4600. Again, that's BJ Rule, 317-345-4600. Again, we thank BJ and Michelle Rainey both for their support of this show. Longtime friends, listeners, and contributors to the show. So thanks once again for that. The next place that I want to go real quick, Joe, is CJ Cox. I don't know that he had, if we're going to look at the totality of his minutes in this game, I don't know that you're going to say all the minutes that he was in there were great from start to finish. But he had some series and runs during this game where he was incredible. Only scores 5 points. Gets them both by attacking the rim. I had texted you over the summer because saw him in practice over the summer attacking the rim some, and haven't really seen it all that much this year. So it was good to see him go to the rim. He gets an and one opportunity both times, misses the free throw the first time, hits it the second time. But it was the second time, not at the start of the game. He plays about 3 minutes. Colvin comes in. Colvin had a really nice game. The last one at IU looked like Painter was maybe trying to go back to him and see what he would bring in this game, who also hit a couple shots. But to finish off on CJ, when he comes back in that second time, he immediately gets a really tough rebound down low, right? And then after that, he has those 2 drives, hits the and one-on-one. Next play down, gets a great assist to TKR, comes right back down to the defensive end, steals the ball, has a great save. Had a really nice pass out to Smith for a 3 later in the game as well. I thought CJ in spurts was really, really good tonight in certain stretches. And I just, as a 6'3", which might be a little bit exaggerated guard, he is such a tough rebounder, man. And he's had some games this year where he's finished with 7 or 8 rebounds, I think. But you saw it at times again tonight. And even on that play where Cam does punch it out to Braden and Braden knocks down that huge 3, CJ was in there battling that kind of he keeps that guy off the ball, and then Colvin kicks it out to Smith, punches it out to Smith for that big 3. So I thought there were stretches he was really good, and I like the aggressiveness. I don't care that he went 2 of 5 or 2 of 6 on the day. I want CJ, if he's open looking for that shot, I want him taking a couple of dribbles into the paint. When he did hit Smith on the wing for that wide open 3, with the assist that he picks up, It's because he shot fakes, gets into the lane, that draws defenders, then he kicks it out to Smith from there. So show me aggressive CJ. I will love it every single time.
I would argue that first half was his best offensive half of the season. And I know the shots didn't fall, but like you said, the aggressiveness just has like that type of aggressiveness just hasn't been there all year, and he showed it, and it was multiple plays in a row. Yeah, just really, really good stuff. And I don't think it was his best game overall by any means. And defensively, I thought it was he had a couple big mistakes, which I think was a big contribution to him only playing 20 minutes this game. But yeah, that first half was like, I think probably his best, from a process standpoint, his best offensive half of the season. And, he's just somebody that I mentioned before the game. It's like, hey, Kobe Johnson eventually switched on the lawyer, but I was like, Kobe might be put on CJ. And like, if that happens, CJ has to be able to make him work off ball. And I thought CJ did a good job of that in those minutes. And yeah, really, really good to see. And not only for this season, but just kind of quickly glancing ahead to the future too. Even Jakari did not play well today, but there was the one play where I think Jakari grabbed the rebound. He's the one that pushes it up, and then they run in action for CJ, and CJ gets downhill. Or maybe it was CJ. Maybe it was the one where CJ got the assist to like the pocket pass to TKR, and it's just like, oh, this backcourt's going to be fun for a couple of years. Yeah, shout out CJ. Colvin's probably the only other one we haven't really talked about that. Well, Colvin in first, I guess. Colvin, 5 points, no rebound, nothing really stat-wise besides the 5 points. But like I don't know. I thought the defense was good, and that was a big reason why he played 20 minutes. It was interesting. Both halves he comes in within like 2.5 minutes of the halves, and I don't know if that was just simply a trying to get Colvin going. I don't know if it was CJ makes a little mistake and you're trying to have a teaching moment type thing. I don't think this was Colvin's best game by any means, but I don't know. There's nothing out there where I was like, oh, yeah, Colvin needs to be taken out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I thought he played fine. I thought maybe a little bit was matchups or needing a little bit more ball handling when they were trying to pressure, especially late in the game. I will have to say, though, like there's been times over his career where if we see that a team's going to press, that you're like, oh, no. Like if Miles got the ball. And multiple times tonight, he navigates that, gets the ball up court just fine. Never looked like there was any panic in terms of decision-making when he was navigating through that press, kind of as the release from Braden when he initially got the ball. I think one time just passed straight into him, and he turned and moved up the court. So that's a little thing, but see him have more confidence with the ball in his hand when he's navigating against a full court press or pressure in general is certainly a positive and something that's going to be important as we look forward to March, because you got to figure some teams in the NCAA tournament are going to try to heat Purdue up, especially, if it's a mid-major, low-major type team that's, kind of looking for anything that they might sell out on and get Purdue to, get Purdue to cough the ball up, get Purdue to get out of what they want to do from an offensive standpoint. And pull off a win. So I think it's huge that we just see more confidence in general.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it was one of my key notes and just it slipped my mind. But yeah, this was we talked about CJ. This is probably the most comfortable I've seen him handling the ball in the half court. This was the most comfortable I've maybe seen Miles Colvin just ever handle the ball. Where, yeah, like you said, at times it's just like you want Colvin to get the ball out of his hands, but it wasn't even just like him dribbling the ball up an open floor. It was not like he's getting insane pressure defensively, but like picked up full court a couple times and he brings the ball up and gets into a spot where it looked like the one time he even thought about attacking and then he still kind of pulls it out and lets Braden sets up the offense. But like good call out there because those are the little things that cannot be overlooked for the role players. Like you got to be able to do things like that. And I think it's good reps for CJ and even Jakari got in a little bit towards the end of like just handling the press and handling that pressure because now you have a few more reps you can rely on when it comes to March, like you said. So 30 minutes into the show. First is the only one we haven't really talked about from an individual standpoint. Is there anything you want to throw out there from him? I know it wasn't huge stat line game. It wasn't a gigantic minutes game from him, but is there anything you want to throw out there from first?
Not really. I mean, I thought he did things fine defensively when he was in the game. Obviously didn't have a big offensive impact, but there wasn't anything that just jumped out of like, oh, this is why Caleb Furst isn't in the game. It was just a matter that they needed to rebound much better, and Cam was the one that was responded and started to do that in a big way. So I think it was more what Cam was doing more so than what Furst was not doing.
I agree, because it was, I thought the defense of scheme that he can still allow Purdue to run is still important. And with not they switched everything early, and he can be a legit guy that goes out there and guards on the perimeter and just has that length that Purdue needs defensively. So yes, this hasn't been the best stretch for Furst, but I still Purdue absolutely still needs him. And it wasn't like he played terrible today. I don't know. I don't think it was just a weird game where it felt like he never really fully got into a flow, but it was also a game. It just wasn't, Purdue needed to go to Heidi with how he was playing and also matchups. And that's probably the bigger takeaway rather than anything that Furst did.
Yeah.
Jakari or Burgess, they played 11 combined minutes. Anything? Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Jakari was a little ambitious with the lob. I like the thoughts. A little bit ambitious, though. Threw it basically into the paint crew.
I gotta bring this one up because Casey just put it through a second ago, and Joe doesn't usually get to go to the press conferences, but Greg wasn't able to jump on tonight, and we really wanted to be there just with everybody going to be talking about Braden breaking the career record and obviously bouncing back after a 4-game loss. And Joe in the back of the room just pipes up kind of quiet towards the end and asks Painter a question about defensive scheme, depending on whether it was Furst in there or whether it was Heidi in there in terms of like a flat hedge or drop coverage. And Matt Painter went on like a 6-minute answer talking defensive scheme. And I'm pretty sure everybody in the room was lost other than Tonsoni that used to coach basketball, maybe still does coach basketball. I'm not sure. And so. Joe. I think the rest of us were just staring in a blank space by minute 3. So Casey says Kraig was Painter and Joe flirting after the game because it felt pretty intimate in the media room. Painter geeked out a little bit that he got to answer a scheme question, and he took full advantage of it. And I'm going to clip that answer later on tonight so everybody can listen to it. And we'll see how many of you actually understand it. There'll be a quiz on Sunday.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Painter's the best. Like Painter's just the best. Like he, I knew the question. Like I thought it was a pretty good question. I figured I'd get a little bit out of him, and then he just kept going. And it is like I'm legitimately just going to go listen back to the clip and then go watch some film of just like trying to fully match up what he said. Like I got a good chunk of it, but there was still a little bit where it was just like, yeah, you're really good at this, and there's still insane amount for me to learn. But
yeah, Casey says Casey said he knew at least half the words. I knew half the words too, Casey. All right, but I couldn't follow what was happening on the floor as he's describing it to me. So,
and I mean, I to summarize the answer, and what I did pick out is like basically UCLA, with how they were running ball screens and their offense, Purdue basically was set up in a spot where they just tried to pre-switch a lot of it, where, right, UCLA would basically have 2 guys standing on top of each other at the elbow. One would cut out, one would set the screen, and they would try to just pre-switch that with the guards. So that way the guards were never really having to play from behind or anything. And so that's where TKR was in this deep drop coverage, because you're just kind of wanting to keep the ball handler in front, then meet Bilodeau, meet Mara on the roll. And then the other thing he talked about is, and more of, I think, applies to a general Purdue defense, is like, this part's coming from me personally. I think Purdue's at their best defensively right now when it's like almost a zone. It's not a zone because it's still man-to-man, but they are in help and you can zone up elsewhere. And Painter talked a little bit about that, of like when you're on the weak side, you have a 2-on-1 generally, where Purdue has the 1 defensively. And they want to try to force that pass to go to the corner. And I thought that was interesting because it does give your guys a little bit more time. And so what happens then is oftentimes you see, ball screen up top, pass to wing, pass to corner, and the guy who is weak side kind of just has to pick his spot. You just hope that they miss the shot. But if you can get that skip to the corner, now the weak side defender can go there, and then you have somebody else rotate back up. I thought it was interesting. Definitely going to go back and listen to it probably like 7 times, though, to try to fully understand what he said.
Yeah. I could listen to it 7 more times and still not fully understand probably what he's talking about on the court. I know when he's talking about certain words that describe what they're doing from an action standpoint or a scheme standpoint, I've got most of that down. It's just trying to keep it all on the flow there. There was a couple of things I definitely didn't catch. I think one thing we need to talk about in this game, just from a psychological standpoint, from a response standpoint, an accountability standpoint, in keeping emotions in check, right? I think for anybody watching this game, you had that I've seen this movie before moment, because we've seen multiple times in this last 5-game stretch where Purdue has let a decent little lead get cut down going into halftime, have a little bit of a lead, come back after halftime, maybe make a shot or two and look like they're going to maybe push again. And then the other team keeps chipping away, gets it close, and then all of a sudden we're in a tie game again. And then we've seen over the last 4 games before this one, Purdue's had a hard time responding and getting the lead back, pushing that thing up. I think it says a lot that tonight they did respond, right? When the game got tied, when the game got within 1 possession, well, they were down, right? I mean, they were down by a point or 2 at different times in this game in the second half. They responded, and their best 2 players responded and really did it in an efficient way. Didn't make mistakes, didn't let the moment get too big for them there, even when there was a lot of pressure on them or anything like that. And that says a lot. And this is a different team without Zach Edey. And this is really the first time that any of these players on this team have faced any type of adversity like this, where you go on a 4 games losing streak. And you've got to have this moment where you say, we can get through to this. This specific team with this specific personnel can get through this, can battle back, can handle that adversity. So I think this game is really, really important just from an emotional standpoint, from a psychological standpoint for this team as we look at going forward.
Yeah, and we talked about it on the pregame show. Like, we could talk about X's and O's and personnel and all of this stuff as much as we want. The biggest thing in this game was the mental side of just you couldn't really let it get to 4 losses, but like at this point, you got to stop the bleeding. And it wasn't a the Purdue versus Michigan game where Purdue just comes out and blows it out right away. Like you said, they let the first half lead slip again, which is a little bit concerning. But even in the second half, it's back and forth, and then they dominate the end. And TKR and Braden had a combined 5 turnovers, and they took a combined 32 shots and 12 free throws. So, like, they had the ball in their hands so much. 5 turnovers between them, like, I'll take that pretty much every game between the 2 of them. Like, 5 or less between those 2 is going to result in good things most of the time. And, man, TKR was just battling. Like, he was just getting to what he wanted and just bailing Purdue out at times, too.
How about that moment? It was before inbounds even happened, where him and Bilodeau are kind of going back and forth at each other a little bit, and he turns to the crowd and starts waving his arms up and whatnot. I don't think I've ever seen Trey do that. He's usually somewhat stoic and he doesn't have that interplay with the crowd like Edey did, where Edey would kind of egg the crowd and get him going and whatnot. So I thought that was a really good moment from him, honestly. Just trying to get that emotion, get everybody pumped up, get this building going again. Just little things like that, man. I could point to so many tonight where the body language, the response, everything felt different tonight to me.
Yeah, and across the board. Now that was a good moment though. They're like tangled on the baseline and before the play, and I don't think I've ever seen TKR pump up the crowd like that. But you could just tell. You could tell how much. You could tell that everybody knew how important this game was on that team, and what what they needed to do, and that they needed to come out of here with a win no matter what. And they did exactly that. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what you're doing right now. Like, do I need to keep talking? No, I can keep going. I was just, I was running out of things to say a little bit, and I was.
You're good. You're good. I was just making sure I was good for the start comment. So we are rolling. We said we were going to keep this show to 45 minutes because we did both want to go to the press conference. It's almost rolling up on midnight. You have anything before we get to the start comments, or maybe just see if it comes out during the starts?
Yeah, no, just go to the start, and I'll save it for like just a quick closing.
All right. So we thank Amit Patel for a $9.99 super chat. It says, Boiler up, great team effort and hustle, plus Loud Mackey won the game. TKR and Smith were cooking. Boilers in the stands are I've messed up our name, Joe. I messed up our name. Boy, there's multiple stand. So Boilers in the stands are awesome. Like and subscribe. Jeff Park says, I really want one of those coaches' quarter zips. Those are pretty sweet. If you didn't see, they rolled out a new Purdue Pete logo in the last couple of days, and those were on those shirts. You're right. They do look pretty sweet. I think you can get some of those from the team store. I was looking at them yesterday. I'm not sure if that specific shirt was on there or not. I'm friends with a few different people in Purdue Athletics through this run club, and they'll be wearing, like, I'll see 2 or 3 of them wearing a shirt. I'll be like, hey, where can I get that? And they're like, you can't. And I just always feel jealous. But some of them you can't. Some of them you can. Go look at the team store. You might be able to get them there. Mark Hofferth says, surprise Cronin didn't go tomorrow on an offense earlier, given our undersized and shallow front court. The reason he didn't, and I'll let Joe speak to this too, is Purdue attacked him immediately. And one thing Painter did talk about in the postgame show was, somebody said, is it different seeing a guy like that on the other side when you're used to having it? And he said, yeah, it sucks. But he did say what he's learned from that. It's kind of like being a defensive-minded coach or offensive-minded coach in football, where you kind of feel how to prepare for the other side of things or whatnot, or a coordinator. And the fact that he's seen how other teams have attacked his bigs over the years has given him a really good sense of how to do it on the other side of that. And they went after him, and they went after him in a couple of different ways, and they were absolutely abusing him. And he got some fouls, and that's why he wasn't in the game for the most part. But when he came in and they actually focused on him offensively, like, he had a quick little impact. I think he had a quick little 6 points there.
Yeah, and Painter talks about it in the presser of, like, at that he had that quick 6, but Painter was just like, at that point, you're not beating us with 2s down 12 or whatever the amount was. But yeah, no, you were absolutely right. Where, I mean, they were going at him, and Braden ISO a couple times, or just even off pick and roll, where he just gets around the hedge and just gets downhill. And if you can pull Mara away from the basket, he loses a lot of the defensive value that he brings, and that's Cronin's a defensive coach, so like that's where he's going to go with his personnel more often than not.
Yep. Andrew Short, $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much for that. Glad to end the month with a W. Great work as always, and hoping I'm assuming that Bits swag shows up in time for a tourney run. Thank you for purchasing that. For those of you guys that don't know, we do have a gear site. There's more than just gear. You can buy a pint glass as well, and stickers and magnets and things like that. Also, Boilers in the Stand stuff. That's on Teespring, right? If you search for, you have to search for Brags in the Stands. I think it's
Link
under his
should
page.
be in the comments.
Okay,
should be. Sometimes it's broken.
All right. So thank you very much for that, and we hope your gear shows up in time as well. Jason Depew says, my play of the game was Cam Heidi's open 3. I don't think many people watching live or on CV believe that shot was going in. That's what made it the play of the game. Cam and Miles quietly these last few games, even though it hasn't been on a whole bunch of attempts, have shot the ball pretty well. It's came during a losing streak, so we haven't really been pointing it out as much maybe as we would if it was off of a winning streak, but they've quietly started to creep those percentages back up.
Heidi is five for his last 9. Now, again, small samples. He's only taken like 2 a game. But 5 of his last 9 have gone in, and Colvin, 7 of his last 15 over the span of 4 games. So small sample, yada yada, but the numbers are starting to creep a little bit back up, which is big.
Yep. So we'll just run down to Olivia S here. She says play of the game. Since we're coming off somebody else naming their play of the game. Joe, I'll let you go first.
I mean, the Heidi one was a good shout out, but I think mine's probably there's 2. I'll say one, and then I'm going to say the other if you don't say it. There was, with 3:42 left, there was a Braden Smith pick and roll drive where UCLA just really collapsed on him and TKR. He has, I believe, just kind of this fading jump pass, skip to the corner, and Lawyer drills a wide open 3. I don't know if, I think maybe put them up 8 or something like that. But it just felt like a big time shot right there, big time play from Braden, and then Lawyer knocking it down.
Yeah, I think he was driving baseline on that, and he kind of swings it from outside.
Yeah.
I thought, but yeah.
Like that.
So I'm gonna go to Smith's made 3, and I'm gonna go there specifically because Purdue had gotten their ass beat on the glass the entire game, and that 3 doesn't happen if it wasn't. Again, Cam's the one who punches us out, but CJ's physicality at the beginning of that play keeps the ball in play so that Cam can punch that ball out. So it's 2 guys converging on the glass and doing their job, allows it to get punched out to Braden. And then I think that was the 3rd made 3 in a row, if I'm remembering right. And I thought that just kind of was the nail in the coffin. No Purdue fan says that at that point in the game, but it felt like, okay, like Purdue should definitely win this game at this point.
Yep, that was going to be my other one. So you hit on it already.
Perfect. Steve Tater Swingle with the best name again on the comments section. $10 super chat. Thank you again for that. Just want to thank Joe, Kraig, and Braggs for all they do, providing us with great content. Boiler up. Thank you once again. Tariq Kamel says, great win. 50% from 3 is tough to replicate every game, though. Obviously, the team's not going to shoot 50% from 3 most games. One of the things we did talk on the preview show, though, was, UCLA does not want to allow 2s. They want to force teams to take 3s. And Joe just disappeared from StreamYard completely, got completely kicked out. So there were some opportunities, and there were some looks. They're going to kind of force you to take shots from there at different times with their defense specifically. So Purdue got some good looks tonight, and this is a really good shooting team. They have been all year. For the most part, we know they're capable of doing that. So it didn't shock me that they shot 50%. If they would have, 45%, whatever, from 3 when they were getting looks that they did tonight.
Yeah, it's not like they were like, tough contested 3s for the most part. Maybe Braden hits 1 or 2, but like it's open 3s. Like good process, you're going to have good results in that. And right, like I maybe I'm putting words in his mouth, and if I am, my bad. I maybe a little bit referring to like, hey, Purdue's problems not fixed, stuff like that. And like, yeah, sure, like 1 win doesn't fix everything, but you had to do it. Like my biggest key to the game was just get a win. I don't care how. Like I don't care if it was 30-28. Just walk out of here with a win, and that's what they did. And you have good 3-point shooting with it from good players. That's going to help, and that's right. Like, yeah, maybe you don't expect 50%, but maybe that can get Purdue back on track and where they can just kind of keep rattling off wins.
All right. Derek throws us a $4.99 super chat. I guess Derek didn't have anything to say with it. That's okay. We appreciate your support of the show, Derek. Thank you so much for that. All of the support allows us to keep going to games. We've got the tourney runs coming up. Okay. Forgot to comment. Y'all rock. Thank you very much. We got the tournament run coming up. That helps us pay for our trips to go bring the coverage that we do from the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament as well. And Steve jumps on and says another $2 super chat. Also, great job pronouncing my last name correctly. Thank you so much for that. I didn't even try it a second time because I couldn't remember how I did it the first time. I don't want to mess it up now and ruin it. So thank you so much for that as well. Joe, tell people when we play next and when they can expect a preview show from us.
Yeah, let's play Rutgers at home. It is Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time on Peacock. It is senior nights. Oh, and I believe Caleb First is the only senior on the team. I can't remember if there's a walk-on or not. I believe Caleb's the only one, so a quicker senior night ceremony, but still. Senior night, going to be the last time in Mackey for many, many months. But 7 o'clock Eastern time, Tuesday, March 4th. We'll have a preview out sometime between Saturday and Monday. With weekends, it can get a little bit odd with scheduling and things. So sometime between Saturday and Monday, we will have a preview out. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you turn on bell notifications, you'll get notified as soon as it gets posted. So you don't have to worry about checking it and when it gets and all that, and it'll just be there. We did just get another super chat from Bonner Boiler Ball. Says TKR's free throw shooting improvements. I'm just going to go with is what that meant to say. And TKR is now up to 71.7% on free throws in Big Ten play, 65% on the year. He is, if you go back to January 31st, he has missed 5, 6, 7, 8. He has missed 10 free throws in that span, and he's attempted like 50 or something like that. So he's probably roughly around 80% over the last month from the free throw line. So very good call out there. Appreciate the sports, appreciate the super chat, and we appreciate everybody tuning in. Like and subscribe on the way out. Oh, yeah. Wait, is Waddell? Oh, Steve Tater Swingle says Waddell is an academic senior. I saw with like somebody saying that. I was like, oh, we should call that out. But regardless, we'll be there. Senior night, Tuesday, Rutgers, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We'll have a preview out before then. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you all whenever that does come out.